Brian Kelly has been fired. There's one thing that I keep hearing and seeing on social media, whether it be from a national perspective, whether it be from a local perspective. So many different people have a thought about Brian Kelly being fired, and it's their right. It's their opinion. Some of them have right opinions. Some of them have wrong opinions. At least in my opinion, they have wrong opinions. But I keep seeing people talk about Brian Kelly wasn't a fit at LSU, that this guy has to be a fit or that guy has to be a fit at LSU to be able to win big there. Well, let's define the word fit for just a moment, because quite honestly, this might be the biggest pet peeve, and it's always been the biggest pet peeve that I've had about any time a coaching search comes up in reference to LSU. A Midwestern guy came down here and won a national title. Nick Saban, who's from West Virginia, came down here and won a national title. A guy from Florida with a Jewish background came to Louisiana and built a program into a dynasty. A West Coast guy came down from the West, or came over from the West Coast and won 2 national titles in baseball. You've had 2 local people in Kim Mulkey and Ed Orgeron win national titles. And everybody wants to talk about, when it comes to Louisiana, about fit. You know, I think about Brian Kelly going out there less than a year ago and asking the fan base and the donor base to help him in reference to resources in NIL. And they did it. If Brian Kelly wasn't a fit and they didn't like the man, or they didn't want this place to succeed, they wouldn't have done that. You, as the LSU fan that did donate to NIL, you wouldn't have done that. Everybody wants to talk about fit. Who is the best fit for LSU? Well, here's the truth about who is the best fit for LSU when it comes to who their next head coach is going to be. The best fit for LSU on who the next guy is going to be has to be a guy that loves football, that is hungry, that wants to go after a national title, that wants to make this place the best that he can make it, because it has the resources, it has the recruiting base, it has the infrastructure to do everything and more that you want. LSU is a top 5 job, and what you can't do is be lazy at the head position for it to work. It wasn't a good fit. It wasn't this. It wasn't that. No, the only fit at LSU is winning. So I sit here and say, and I see all of these opinions from people who are not from this state, from people who don't understand this state, saying this guy's not a fit. And listen, Brian Kelly wasn't a fit because he didn't do what needed to be done to win the games that he needed to win to be able to be a fit. Ed Orgeron was the perfect fit, and how did that end? Now, he gave you the best season of all time, and I'm with you there. But I look at some of the guys that are on campus and ladies that are on campus, and I say, Jay Johnson's an introverted dude from the West Coast. How, when you hire him, did you think that was a quote-unquote fit? That's not how that works. Let me tell you something about Louisiana that nobody wants to admit. If you embrace the culture, Brian Kelly didn't. If you embrace the culture, if you embrace the people, Brian Kelly didn't on either one of those. If you come here and give you everything that you have to try to make this place great, the people will back you. Brian Kelly literally didn't do that, and people backed him when he asked for the resources to go out there and get portal players. So the biggest pet peeve that I personally have, as someone who's never lived outside of this state in my entire life, it is of my opinion, the biggest fit is a guy that will come in here and make this place great because it's supposed to be. There are coaches around the country that can come in here and make this thing and make this place fit. We're going to talk about some of them tonight. We're going to talk about Lane Kiffin. We're going to talk about John Summerall. We're going to talk about some of these guys like Clark Lee, whose names have been flying out there. We're going to go down the list of a hot board, but don't you ever mistake it. The fit is actually giving a shit. Embracing the state and embracing the people. BK didn't do that. Jay Johnson did. Jay Johnson did. Nick Saban did. Les Miles did. Clearly, Kim and Ed Orgeron did. What do they all have in common? Skip Bertman did. What do they all have in common? They all have in common that, number one, they put their head down and they get to work. And when they were winning, they put their head down and get to work. And they built something in a dynasty run because they recruited at a high level, they developed at a high level, and they actually gave a damn. So I picture some of the people who are coming out here today, now that the news is broken that Brian Kelly's not here, and they're talking about what is the best culture fit. This place will accept anything if you come in here and win. We won't hire a Yankee. We won't do this. Guys, you went and got a dude from the West Coast, and you went and got a dude from the Midwest and a guy from West Virginia, and it fit. Don't you dare come at me and tell me it's a lazy take. People think of Louisiana, and they say to themselves, it's a different place. Guys, it is. We've lived here. We're from here. We understand everything that it means. Are there guys that I think that would instantly jive and be able to rectify this place and get it to a place to where it ultimately should be? Absolutely. But do not get it twisted. The best fit is a guy that will work hard and not take no for an answer about making himself and this place elite. And that is what's going to fit. You literally have a two-time national champion the last 2 years who's an introverted guy. And it works because he relentlessly pursues greatness. There's going to be a lot of talk over the next month. Things that are true and things that aren't true. When we come out of a break, we're going to tell you some things that are and aren't true, and we'll break some of these things down. Nevertheless, we're live. Everyone do us a favor and hit the like and share. Share to all those groups if you're on Facebook and to all those social media pages. You're watching us, listening to us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, notification bell wherever you listen to podcasts. Rate, review, and subscribe. Tonight's docket. I'm going to tell you some things after we come out of the break that I've seen that have been reported that are true and not true. We're going to talk about the hot board that I think that guys that I think early on here that LSU is looking into. And we'll talk about each one of them in its entirety. We'll talk about Frank Wilson and where this season's going under him. I think that there's some discussions that we have to go there, and then we'll get to your thoughts, questions, and concerns. Every AYS episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. We are honored and privileged to be partnered with our good friends over at FanDuel. Go over to the FanDuel Sportsbook app, where if you have Android, Apple, wherever you have it, or just go over to FanDuel.com. If you need to, download the app, go to the website. If you want to place the bets, who do you think is going to be the next head coach for the LSU Tigers? You can place that bet with our good friends over at FanDuel. We love FanDuel for everything that they stand for and everything that they do. The reason we are partnered with them is because we align in the things of sports gambling and everything that they stand for. We are honored and privileged to be powered by them, and every AYS show is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. If you have discretionary income, go place those bets at FanDuel.com today. For thoughts, questions, and concerns, go over to FanDuel.com/RG for more details, and they will lay it all out there for you there. All right. Let's get to a couple of these comments here. Got a couple of super chats flying high. Guys, if we keep getting super chats, we're not going to get to live phone calls. I'm not going to do both of them. Couple of people became members on the YouTube channel. Kenny Robinson became a member on the YouTube channel. Thank you so much, Kenny. So did Mo, and also did Steve. We thank you, all three of you, for becoming members on the YouTube channel. This is what we're going to do either tomorrow or Wednesday. I'm pretty sure that it probably, at the latest, it will be coming out Wednesday, but we will be doing some members-only content. that more than likely will be dropping on Wednesday. I'm going to try to get it out for tomorrow, depending on how things work out. We're bringing on a lot of guests. Today, we brought on Josh Pate. And you can check that out on the YouTube channel and our conversation with Pate State and what he said in reference to what he thinks about the LSU job, how it ended with Brian Kelly, and who he thinks LSU may be targeting here moving forward. So we'll be doing some members-only content so you can become a member of the YouTube channel. Ricky with three $20 super chats. Ricky, I don't know if this is all in one, but I appreciate you sending $60 in super chat, so we'll get to your comment here. He does say on here, what's wrong with LSU? Become a power trip. I do think some of this, for what it's worth, to Ricky's point, there is a lot of people that want their hands on the wheel for this LSU hiring. I do think that things behind the scenes have been moving very quickly. I don't know if Scott Woodward is going to make it, to be quite honest with you. I feel pretty confident that things are moving in the direction from potentially moving on from him. At the current moment, I would assume that the board of supervisors, let's play out the Scott Woodward thing for just a moment. It was reported that Scott Woodward was not involved in the discussions with the governor and the board of supervisors to fire Brian Kelly. What? If that story is legit, which I have heard that it was legit, if that story is legit, and they have axed him from making these decisions, okay, let's talk about that. You cut out your AD for the biggest firing, potentially, especially from a money standpoint. You cut him out of that in some of this. Well, then that tells me, with a new president that's probably going to be coming in some part of the early November period, that potentially Scott Woodward's days may be numbered here. That is what I think. I would be shocked at the current moment if that's not how the power brokers that play this. I don't know that to be fact. That is strictly opinion based off of the actions that have started to play out here. Scott Woodward is responsible. The A&M thing for LSU is not on him with Jimbo Fisher. Guys, he has had two coaches that have been fired for buyouts nearly and roughly around $130 million. Yeah, I think that he is either on very, 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 very thin ice, or he's going to get the axe. That's what I think is going to happen based off the actions and the reports that are coming out. If those are true and those actions are true, with the governor getting involved and all of this going on in reference to the power trip, I do think that a governor is going to probably tell a president to make that move. Yes, I do. Do I agree with it? I don't know if I completely agree with it. Do I think Scott should be over it if he is the AD of who the next head coach should be? No, I don't. But it is very interesting to see how this part is playing out. And look, man, sometimes you only get one coaching hire. This isn't Florida. So, yeah. Frankie M with a $2 super chat says, my top three is Kiffin, Freeman, and Kiffin again. Not a bad order. Not a bad order at all. We'll talk about both of those here tonight. Glenn on YouTube says, Dale Brown, Skip Bertman, Nick Saban, none of them from the South, and they won and embraced the culture. Listen, it drives me insane. It drives me up the wall when I see these national people and local people who are from here, that have lived here, that they talk about who's the best fit. Brother, the motherfricker that would come in here and embrace the place. A person that will work hard and win. Like, here's the wildest thing ever. When Brian Kelly beat Alabama in 22, nobody said he was a culture problem or that he wasn't a culture fit. I'm not going to listen to people that have not lived here and don't know this place. You and I know this place. Who's the best fit? The dude that will do something like what Jay Johnson did, even if you don't get to 2 national championships, but somebody that will come in here, relentlessly recruit, and try to make this place the best. Bottom line, What are you talking about fit? It drives me up a wall that some in our local media can be so dumb. And I mean that. Cole with a $5 super chat says, what's the timeline you expect something to be finalized with early signing day essentially around the corner? Does playoffs possibly affect that? Cole, I don't think, like, for example, we talked about this last night, and we'll talk about it again today. You're going to have to really be in a situation where you might have to hold on for the long haul here if you're going after Kiffin. Like, excuse me. The worst case scenario here for you is that Kiffin continues to win out, and if that's your target, then he makes it to the playoffs. He wins in round one. That would be the worst scenario for you. Now, I don't know. I think if you go that long, you have a pretty good idea of who your next head coach is going to be, right? Like, if Florida and, like, for an example, if Florida and LSU have not made a hire and the playoffs have started, either number one, they're both going after Lane Kiffin and they're going to make him decide when he's done, or they both are going after coaches who are coaching playoff teams, and maybe it's two different guys. That's what I would think. But I am waiting. If Lane Kiffin wants to wait until after the season and after they've lost to make a decision, by all means, then wait for it. But I think you got to let you're going to have to let Frank Wilson. You're going to have to let Austin Thomas. They're going to have to run this ship until you have a next head coach. I really do not believe that Austin Thomas gets moved on from a guy like Lane Kiffin, at least not right now. So they're going to have to hold on. They're going to have to hold on for dear life. And that's what's going to have to happen here. Oh, and by the way, Joe Sloan got fired. We got to talk about Joe Sloan getting fired. We'll talk about that as well. Stephen Trehan became a member on the YouTube channel. Thank you, Stephen. Greatly appreciate that, my good man. Ashley Broussard also became a member on the YouTube channel, along as Rolo. So all three of you and everyone who has become members on the YouTube channel, thank you so much. We greatly appreciate you doing that. Just do us a favor. Send this show to 10 of your buddies and say, hey, man, do my friend a solid. Go subscribe to his YouTube channel for me. Just do me that solid. That's all that I ask. It's all that I ask. Send it to everybody you know that's LSU fan. Ricky Pope with a $5 super chat says, Scott is gone, $130 million. Lost, he loses more than gaining. I mean, Ricky, I do think that he's gone, yes. I do think that he is gone. I don't know if he survives this, and it's based off of the actions of what's going on here, and that is the bottom line. That is the bottom line. All right, let's get moving here. Everyone, do us a favor: hit the like and share. Share to all those groups if you're on Facebook and to all those social media pages. You're watching us, listening to us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, notification bell wherever you listen to podcasts. Rate, review, and subscribe. As I mentioned, every AYS show is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Download the FD Sportsbook app today and place those bets. James Franklin leads the way for the next LSU head coach. Do you believe that James Franklin is going to be the next head coach of LSU? You can place that bet over at FanDuel. We greatly appreciate and are proud to be partnered with our good friends over at FanDuel. Let me get to a quick break. When we come back, Joe Sloan has been fired. We'll talk about some other things in reference to things that I know to be positively true and not true. We'll get into that. Frank Wilson becoming the interim. We'll get into all that. We'll get into a hot board. We got so many things that we got to discuss here, and we'll do that next. Stay with us.
He will sell your house and find you a new. Well, Tyler's the man. He's here for you. If you want to buy or sell, well, it's not too late. Dial 955-0008. Just call 955-0008. Y'all call Tyler. He'll shoot you straight.
Hey, guys, I want to tell you about our good friends over at Red Stick Financial. They're your local residential mortgage broker located right here in the heart of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. At Red Stick Financial, they find the bank that works for your particular set of needs to purchase the home of your dreams or refinance the current one. They truly are your partners in this process, and they pride themselves in helping individuals and families with one simple goal in mind, and that is to make home financing approachable, attainable, and stress-free. They are licensed in all Louisiana, Texas, and Mississippi. So from Amarillo to Meridian and everything in between, they have you covered. Red Stick Financial brings you creative, customized solutions, and they don't believe in the one-size-fits-all when it comes to loans. They even have special options for mobile and manufactured homes located in a flood zone and stated income financing for those of us who are self-employed borrowers. If you or someone you know is looking to buy a home, refinance an existing mortgage, or simply want to know what options are out there for your future, give Red Stick Financial a call today at 225-407-9250. That's 225-407-9250. Or check them out online at redstickfinancial.com. That's redstickfinancial.com. Before you purchase the home of your dreams or you go and do that refinance, you need to go local. Go Red Stick. That's completely on me. I completely messed this whole thing up. That is completely on me. But nevertheless, we're back. All right. Let's get moving here. I see a couple of super chats we'll get to very quickly. Ricky Pope says LSU is not a culture, but a way of life. I fully agree with that. That is absolutely true. Louisiana is a way of life, and you got to embrace it. I keep hearing people talk about fit. Guys, you've lived here. Y'all have lived here. You know. Like, what are we talking about here? But it is a way of life, and you got to embrace it. You can't be lazy. Frank Castle with a $5 super chat says you can't entertain the idea of Dan Lanning leaving Oregon and then ask why Mike Elko would leave the Aggies. There's similar justifications for both. I'm assuming that you're talking about the Josh Payton interview that we did. Yes, I can, because I do think Dan Lanning's asking questions that maybe I didn't think that he would ask. Frank, I will go source to source with this in reference to I don't think that Dan Lanning leaves Oregon. I do think that there's questions that are being asked. I do think that Dan Lanning will have a conversation. I just don't see Mike Elko leaving. Could be wrong. Maybe he does. I don't see that happening. But I do think that Dan Lanning does worry about future things post Phil Knight's survival. That's a horrible way of putting it. Horrible way of putting it by me. I do think he worries and wonders what it looks like around Oregon post what is happening with Phil Knight. I'll just leave it there. And so we'll see. We will see. All right. Let's get moving here. Everyone do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. And hit the like and share. We greatly appreciate it. LSU offensive coordinator Joe Sloan was fired today. Now, there was a lot of reports and rumors that he had been fired yesterday. Those reports and rumors were not true as of yet. I understand what happened yesterday. There were a lot of things like, hey, Joe Sloan's getting fired. He was not fired yesterday officially. Today, he has been officially fired, and he will no longer be the offensive coordinator at LSU. Here's the thing about Joe Sloan. We're going to talk about what happened on the field, but the first thing that you and I got to do is talk about off the field. The truth of the matter is that I don't think that a lot of people inside of that building, especially people that have been there for a while, are really mourning the firing of Joe Sloan today. I think when you look at Joe Sloan, there's a lot of things that happened that Brian Kelly backed that he did that Brian Kelly should not have. The issues with multiple staff members that I heard that there were massive arguments, that Joe Sloan did things that maybe he shouldn't have done and allowed the head coach to handle. And I do think that when push came to shove and yesterday happened, that if Joe Sloan were, I don't want to say good guy, but had the backing of people from in that building, like a Brad Davis, that maybe that these moves wouldn't have been made. If there were better connections with him and people on the staff, I don't know if Frank Wilson and company fire him today, because you can make the justification for Cortez Hankton, Brad Davis, and multiple other people that are on that staff offensively. But the truth of the matter is even back in 2023, there were a lot of issues with Joe Sloan and players on that team and coaches on that team. I think there was a disconnection, for whatever it's worth, between Jaden Daniels and Joe Sloan that has been very, very well hinted at on this show, but it's definitely been going on and happened after the end of the 2023 season, that Brian Kelly should have nipped in the butt, and he didn't. I think that the Jaden Daniels, Mike Denbrock experience was a great one because of how Mike Denbrock constantly handled situations. The story that came out the way that I know it a couple of weeks ago from T-Bob Hebert in reference to Brian Kelly pushed Mike Denbrock out of the building and for Joe Sloan is not completely true. Majority of it's true, but not completely. They wanted Mike Denbrock to stay. They offered him and made him, before he signed on the dotted line, the highest paid coordinator in the country. They did not want to move on, but Brian Kelly also didn't want to move on because he didn't know if there was a justification of firing a quarterback's coach that just had a Heisman Trophy winner. And I understand both sides of that. But the bottom line truth is that Mike Denbrock and Joe Sloan were not on the same page, and they never were. I don't think that your Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, and if Jaden Daniels were sitting right here and was very truthful of the situation, that if he told you all the things that went on, I don't think that he would say that there's a lot of – I don't think that he would be very shocked that this happened today. But people in that building wanted to move on from him, and people that have the power wanted to move on from him. There have been a lot of things that I have hinted at throughout the years that I could chronicleize and give you the episodes and timestamps if we need to about how, listen, man, I don't think people rallied behind him. I think that ultimately Joe Sloan put all of his chips in the Garrett Nussmeier experience, and it backfired. And he did not trust other staff members and their opinions. And ultimately, when it came down to it, he was canned right along with Brian Kelly. I personally, and after I say all this, I want to say this too. I personally have never had an issue with Joe Sloan. He has always been nice to me. He's never given me a reason not to like him. And I think that ultimately he's going to get back in coaching. He's going to continue to have a coaching career. And on he goes along his coaching career and tenure. But it doesn't stop the fact of what was happening in that building and what happened in that quarterback room. Jaden Daniels was elite in spite of things that went on in that quarterback room with Joe Sloan. Jaden Daniels would have been elite with a paper clip. He would have been elite with this pen if it was his quarterback's coach, because it mattered to him and he put in the work. Nobody made Jaden Daniels go into that building at 5 a.m. every morning. No one made him put in the work and go to California. No one made him pay for flights to go to California with his receivers and constantly put in the work, which, guys, quite honestly, did not happen this offseason. That is just a truth. And when it came down to it today, he was moved on from. But we got to get on the field. And when we get on the field and we look what Joe Sloan has done this year offensively, you're 96th in the country in total offense. You're 122nd in the country in rushing offense. You're 47th in the country in passing. You're 77th in the country on third down. You're 82nd in the country in scoring offense. You're 83rd in the country in the red zone. You're top 75 or tied for 75th in the country in sacks allowed. He wasn't a good offensive coordinator. He did not understand rhythm and play calling. He didn't understand what he needed to do, and it encompassed itself literally before the half versus Texas A&M. And I think that the truth of the matter was the writing was on the wall for the Florida game a season ago. Guys, I came out here during the offseason multiple times and stated over and over again that there was no way that Brian Kelly could walk back getting involved in play calling a season ago and run it back with his offensive coordinator. I think a good head coach would have done this and been in this situation and done the things that needed to be done, a lot like what Ryan Day did with Brian Hartline. A couple of seasons ago, 3 seasons ago, Brian Hartline became the offensive coordinator for Ohio State. And when he became the offensive coordinator, the offense wasn't really good. He's a first-time play caller. Ryan Day had to get involved in play calling. But they love Brian Hartline because he's a hard worker and he's one of their own. And Ryan Day said, listen, we gave it a shot here. I'm going to continue to mold you. I'm going to continue to make you one of the best play callers in the country. And we're going to work on this. I need you to be the wide receivers coach. And I promise you, when your time comes up again, I will make you the offensive coordinator of Ohio State. Ohio State goes out and gets Chip Kelly. And then after Chip Kelly is gone, they promote Brian Hartline from within yet again. They made a situation that could have been very toxic, not toxic. So let's rewind what happened a season ago. You couldn't run the football with 4 offensive linemen that got drafted. Nor did you try enough, and you were very simplistic. You hired a guy who had no offensive play calling experience. Brian Kelly had a track record of hiring from within and those things working, like Clark Lee. See how that worked? It looked like it worked out pretty good. And in Brian Kelly's tenure, okay, well, what does he see in Joe Sloan? Well, the truth of the matter was it was a lazy hire, and Joe Sloan did not know what he was doing. And the last time that Joe Sloan is going to be a play caller at LSU, at least for the foreseeable future, he did horribly. He did horribly. The way that you ended the half against Texas A&M was abysmal. How you handled the Vanderbilt situation when you're down 10 was horrible. But Joe Sloan remaining as your offensive coordinator doesn't fall on Joe Sloan. It falls on Brian Kelly. Because the truth of the matter is, how as a head coach in football do you get in a situation where you have to literally step in and show the world that the guy that you have as your offensive coordinator is not good enough? During the offseason, you went out there and got Alex Atkins, and you made Alex Atkins your tight ends coach, and you made him your run game coordinator because the run game was abysmal. And Brian Kelly hired Alex Atkins to do a job that he did not want to do and being involved in play calling. And it backfired. The truth of the matter is that they should have moved on from Joe Sloan well before this, and they didn't. They didn't. This is all on Brian Kelly because we looked at this situation and said, well, they went in the portal and you got a fifth-year quarterback and things will get better. Maybe it will get better. And it didn't. It simply didn't. You got in a situation where your head coach literally went out publicly, whether he said it or not, but by his actions said that Joe Sloan wasn't good enough and didn't make a move then. Then you fast forward to Texas A&M. Brian Kelly knows that he's going to be on TV when that play is called. He's been in this game long enough, and he's cursing out Joe Sloan on the headset. Brian, you can blame Joe Sloan all you want to, but the way that the half ended versus Texas A&M is not on him. You got to tell him how you want the clock to be managed. You have to know the play call of what he's calling when he's calling a screen with no timeouts. That is on you. Everything that's been wrong offensively this year isn't on Joe Sloan to me. It's on Brian Kelly. You stayed with Garrett Nussmeier when you were warned. You knew what was going on with him. You knew that there was a situation where maybe he doesn't progress. There wasn't a lot of, with all due respect, there wasn't a lot of things that were going on during the offseason that would signify that, whether you want to believe it or not. But regardless of Garrett, you stayed with Joe Sloan and you didn't give Garrett a chance. You didn't give him a chance. And then there comes this whole thing called recruiting. You put all of your eggs in the basket of Bryce Underwood, and it also failed. It also failed. You don't have a 2026 quarterback committed to this class. You do not have an option right now to go into the portal and get a quarterback. You don't have an OC. The Joe Sloan experience over the last year and a half is going to go down, in my opinion, because the tenure of it went so long, longer than Jake Pete's, as one of the worst. It's one of the worst. This should have never happened. There were clear and obvious signs that people around that staff and people in that building knew that there was a massive disconnect. Nobody stuck up for him. He was a horrible play caller. And he isolated himself from other people in that staff. When I look at him as an offensive play caller, he never understood the run game. Ever. Guys, the truth of the matter is Alex Atkins has been involved. Here's the truth. Now that Brian Kelly's been fired along with Joe Sloan. 4 weeks ago, Alex Atkins took over the run game. And he was giving Joe Sloan suggestions on what he should do in the run game. The last 3 weeks, whether you want to admit this or not, this is the truth. Your running backs for LSU over those last 3 weeks, now that Alex Atkins has been involved. Here's what they've done. They have 58 carries for 348 yards and a touchdown. They average 6 yards a carry. 6 yards a carry. So when things started to get better in the run game, it wasn't on Joe Sloan. It was somebody else that was literally calling plays who probably should have been calling plays before Joe Sloan was doing it himself. We can sit here and blame Joe Sloan all we want. You gave him a shot. And I don't mind, to be blunt with you, I don't mind you giving him a shot if you think that that is the guy that you want to roll with. You should have never walked out of 2024 going into 2025 with him as your play caller. I don't want to say that I came out here all offseason and says, guys, I don't like it. There's no way Brian Kelly walks this back, but we did talk about it a lot. This is on BK. It's on BK, and Joe Sloan has been fired over it. The truth of the matter is, of all of the coordinators, when you're a CEO head coach, you have to dominate from your recruiting. You have to dominate from a recruiting standpoint, and you have to dominate from a coordinator standpoint. Like, I think, ironically, of the last year of Nick Saban, where everybody's like, oh, my God, he hired Tommy Rees. Tommy Rees is going to be the OC of Alabama? Yeah. And they won the damn SEC, y'all. I would have taken Tommy Rees over Joe Sloan in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. The way that the quarterback and the offense was run on and off the field was catastrophic. And it's been catastrophic. There's going to be a competition, I think, on this entire team. I think the offensive line, I think the quarterback position, running back position, wide receiver position, everything is up for grabs now. May the best man win. And I hope the best men will play. And I think Frank Wilson will play the best players. Something that has not been going on here. And I do think in a couple of weeks when you go into Bama, you're going to have a little bit of a shakeup. You're going to have a situation in 2 weeks versus Bama. Guys, they're not going to know what to expect because why should they? Things were god-awful. And all I kept hearing all offseason about this offense was, we threw the ball for 4,000 yards. Guys, when you drop back over 600 times, you drop back to pass over 600 times. You better throw for 4,000 freaking yards. You better. It's one of the worst experiences that we've seen. So, as an LSU fan, you can come out here and blame Joe Sloan. Do I think his pass concepts were god-awful? Yes, they were god-awful. Do I think that there were situations when Kyron Lacey, God rest his soul, said, you better throw me the football? Yes, and alpha males prevailed. But he comes from an air raid system, and none of the air raid principles followed him. You know, when Joe Sloan was hired, I thought to myself, okay, well, you come from an air raid offense, so at least I know where you're going with Garrett. You're going to get the ball out quickly. You're going to get the running backs involved in the pass game, and you really didn't do any of that to what we see traditional air raid offenses and what they look like. You know, when I think of air raid in today's society and system, I think of Lincoln Riley. I think of Garrett Riley. I think of all these different guys that are around college football that Joe Sloan didn't even remotely try. And the times that he actually did, he had success. There was no organizational leadership from a play calling standpoint and where you wanted to go offensively. And it failed. This was the number one move that they had to make post Briankelly. Again, I'm telling you, nobody in that building is mourning this today. And again, Joe Sloan has been great to me, and I appreciate that, but that is ultimately the truth. As this goes on moving forward, you're going to continue to hear stories about what happened with BK, Joe Sloan, Garrett Nussmeier. Like, all of this is going to come out. And I guarantee you that what we just talked about is going to be the stories that you hear. I wish him the best. And I truly, truly, truly mean that. I wish Joe Sloan nothing but the best. He wasn't ready for this. He was never ready for this. And it ultimately backfired. I will say this from a personal standpoint. I never went into a game, ever, when he was the play caller and understood what we ever tried to accomplish. I never understood the ultimate goal. I think the best game that he called was probably Clemson, and that team sucks. But I never felt like that there was ever a true rhythm about how things were supposed to look and go. Never. And the one time in the last 2 years, year and a half, that you actually found a running game, he had nothing to do with it. Guys, you cannot justify the last 3 weeks, 2 of those games being against ranked opponents, and say to yourself, well, things didn't get better in the run game. I know that I brought this up with Carter a lot over the last 2 weeks. It's easy to see that the run game has gotten better while you've had somebody who knows what to do in the run game. It is simple about how that's been cleared up. Does your offensive line stink right now? Yes. Somebody's going to have to explain to me how Harlem Berry had over 7 yards per carry last week, and you've had constantly 2 backs over the last 3 weeks with over 5 yards a carry. But the ultimate thing, before we move on here, the ultimate thing that broke the Joe Sloan situation as OC, he never understood how to get his playmakers the ball over and over again. When times got tough, he couldn't overcome the adversity. Like, as an example, when you're down 3 or you're down 10, it's not time to panic. It's not time to panic. But ultimately, this was over when you had a true freshman, 5-star, number 1 running back in the country that was averaging over 7 yards per carry, and you got him 1 touch in the second half. Where you only targeted Trades Green twice in the second half. You were throwing screens, running back screens to Jawan Johnson when you're down 10 multiple times. I asked a question that's quite simple. Did you give up? Did you give up? Because that's what it seems like to me in a lot of extents. It seems to me that, like, there's no way you called that. There's no way that you put in Jawan Johnson at running back and then threw him a screen when Harlem Berry is going off. There's no way. But yet you did. You're throwing multiple times to Bauer Sharp over and over again when Trades Green is on your roster. Can somebody make that make sense? But I end this segment by saying this. I gave you all of the offensive stats. 96th in total offense, 122nd in rushing. The thing that really broke Joe Sloan's back was he didn't know how to get things done in the red zone. You're tied for 83rd in the country in red zone percentages. You're tied for 83rd. Great play callers get things done in the red zone. And when you're constantly in the mid 80s and low 90s in efficiency rate in the red zone, that's what gets you fired. Guys, there's no other justification than this happening. I don't like people getting fired. I'm going to say this, you won't believe me. You won't believe me. I don't like people getting fired. People have families, they have young children, they have wives. But this wasn't good enough, and it wasn't remotely close. All right. Let's move on here. I see we have a lot of super chats in the building. All right, we'll get to the super chats in just a minute. We'll get to them at the end of the show here. Let's move on. I need to get to something before we get to a break. So there are a lot of things that are out there right now that are getting reported. Let's walk through some of them. Everyone is trying to break news here. Everybody trying to break news. I've seen a couple of reports out there. I guess some reporter in New Orleans came out and said that there was a settlement agreement in reference to Briankelly and some clause. That's not true. I don't know the person's name. I don't know if it's a man or female. I really don't know. I just don't know who this person is. But there was a report that came out earlier today that I want to clarify on. In a report earlier today, and I'm trying to find this person's name, from Kareem Johnson, that said, from my sources with very close ties to the LSU athletic department and board of supervisors, Briankelly and LSU have settled on a buyout agreement around $20 million. That is false. That is false. Around $30 million with Johnson report. was actually owed to him utilizing the morals code. There are going to be things that come out about Brian Kelly. I'm sure that they're going to come out. I'm sure that I don't know. That's just not true. I don't think that they're going to have conversations until probably Wednesday, Thursday, in reference to trying to get this thing settled, if they get it settled at all. Guys, why would Brian Kelly budge? Oh, Blake, he's such a douchebag. He's not going to budge on a buyout. Guys, you wouldn't either. That is not true. Fletcher Mackel came out as well and talked about a massive donor. Fletcher should have kept that. A massive donor giving majority of the buyout. Fletcher should have kept that one to himself. He should have kept that one to himself. Here's my God's honest opinion. There are a lot of things on this here phone that get told to me from very reliable people that do not need to see the light of day. You can tell who the people are that actually know shit and run out here and talk to actual people, because the donors around here don't want people to know what they're doing. Not yet, anyway. Is the story and report wrong? Not completely, but sometimes you got to limit yourself in what you're saying. The report's not inaccurate, though. There are going to be some massive donors, which, quite frankly, I don't know. I guess we'll see. But the story's not completely inaccurate. All right, last thing here before we get to a break. The Athletic came out with a story on how the whole thing with Brian Kelly played out. They have some details wrong. I think Brian Kelly was going to give up Joe Sloan. I'm not thinking. And I do think other staff members, Brian Kelly tried to hold on to, that this LSU administration did not want to. And things got heated. If you would like to read the entire Athletic story, I fully suggest that you do. I think a lot of those things are very accurate from what I've been told. They did a really good job at breaking down what happened on Sunday. I've told you what I've heard on, around 9:30, shit started getting really bad. It's pretty accurate. I think they got some coaches wrong in how and who Brian Kelly was trying to protect. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Shit got to a place where it was of no return, and it is what it is. All right, let me get to a quick break. When we come back, hot board, some guys that I think LSU's actually going to be targeting here. Frank Wilson, the interim. I want to make a statement about what I think about Frank Wilson taking over this program in the immediate future. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Guys, let me tell you about our good friends over at Grand Slam Heating and Air, where your comfort is their top priority. At Grand Slam Heating and Air, they promise to provide customers with high-quality HVAC service at an affordable price while ensuring the homeowner peace of mind. From their office to your home, they guarantee the best hassle-free experience around. Efficiency and comfort is their game. Let them make your home Grand Slam today. At Grand Slam Heating and Air, they're offering their annual maintenance plan starting off at $18.75 a month and also doing those $99 tune-up promotion. They provide free estimates for system and ductwork replacement, as well as offering financing to get the job done with no money up front. From Baton Rouge to Hammond to Covington, they're all around. So what you need to do today, give them a call at 225-380-9065. That's 225-380-9065. Or go over to their website, getgrandslamair.com. That's getgrandslamair.com, where your comfort is their top. Hey, Southwest Louisiana, are you ready to gear up for your next outdoor adventure or tackle that next big job on the farm? Then head on over to Henderson Tractors, Boats, and Power Sports. At Henderson and Lake Charles, they've got everything you need under one massive 30,000 square foot indoor showroom. Kubota tractors and mowers to power through the toughest tasks. Polaris off-road bikes and side-by-sides to conquer any trail. And tracker boats with brands like Ranger, Nitro, Sun Tracker, and Regency pontoons for a day out on the water. Whether you're a farmer or a hunter or just someone who loves the great outdoors, Henderson has what you need to get the job done and have fun while doing it. Browse their new and used inventory over at their website, hendersonimplement.com. That's hendersonimplement.com. Or give them a call today at 337-436-4366. That's 337-436-4366. Or go see them over in Lake Charles on the corner of East McNee Street and Highway 14. Remember, if you need a tractor, go to Henderson. Need a boat, go to Henderson. Or if you need an ATV or side-by-side, you know where to go. Henderson. Just let them know that your good friend Blake Ruffino over at AYS sent you. Guys, I want to talk to you about our good friends over the Drake Williams Law Firm and Drake Title Company. Are you facing tough times due to an injury from a car accident, navigating the complexities of divorce, or purchasing a new home? At the Drake Williams Law Firm and Drake Title Company, they understand the challenges you're going through, and they are here to help. The lawyer team of Ernie Drake III, Ryan J. Williams, and Summer Vignair, along with Morgan Daniels, have the experience and proven track record to give you that peace of mind. Give them a call today at 985-386-7600. That's 985-386-7600 to schedule a free consultation at their brand new office located in historic downtown Ponchatoula. They're also doing a special, the AYS special. If you're refinancing or closing on a home in Southeast Louisiana, request the Drake Title Company to handle your closing. If you mention Blake Ruffino and AYS, you're going to receive a $400 discount on title fees. Again, give them a call at 985-386-7600. Let them know that Blake Ruffino sent you on by.
We're back.
By the way, I completely forgot about this until I was just told about it. So,
this past spring, I went to a LSU football practice. Brian Kelly allowed us to be at full practices. And I, first off, want to say to Brian Kelly, I greatly appreciate it. Him allowing us for practices for that long really helped this show grow and for me to take off and for me to do this for a full time. And I will always thank him for allowing us to do that. I wasn't the only one, clearly. They had these full practices, and I will always thank him for that. But during the spring this past year, I went to an LSU football practice to kind of see how the new team was coming together. And obviously being at LSU practice, when you cover the team and you love the team and you follow the team, is a big deal. There was a specific moment in time during the spring, and I talked about this story when it happened during the spring, but just to refresh it, where there was a play called that Garrett Nussmeier rolled out right and didn't throw the football, and he scrambled and he picked up a first down. Well, the media that was all there during the spring watching this practice, I guess all kind of made some noise that Garrett Nussmeier actually ran the football and ran it for a first down. As soon as the media kind of made some noise while we were all watching practice, Joe Sloan, the offensive coordinator for LSU, literally turned around and pointed at the media and went full Kirk Cousins and said, "You like that? You like that?" And I'm never going to forget that. Ever going to forget that situation of like, why are you worried about what the media is saying about Garrett Nussmeier because he's running the football? Your head coach allowed us to be in here. That's not on us. If we are going to be allowed to be at all of these practices and for the full length of practices, we're going to go. Why are you worried about the media saying and kind of gasping that Garrett Nussmeier ran the football in a practice that he can't get hit in? By the way, in an interview later that spring, you would come out and say that Garrett Nussmeier needs to run the ball more. And then you point and kind of talk at the media and talk down to them when it was something that he clearly needed to do. I'm never going to forget that as long as I live. Ever. Never going to forget that as long as I live. After that day and after that situation, I got a phone call. And some of the things that were said after that, I'm never going to forget it. You like that? Good heavens. Good heavens. You can't make that up. You can't go full Kirk Cousins. I'm sorry. You just can't go full Kirk Cousins, dude. You're like, I'm not lying, y'all. I know that none of this shit's comical, right? Like, you're mad at the situation. I'm mad at the situation. We want LSU football to be really good. And I get that. But that is some of the funniest shit ever. Oh, God. You like that? Oh, sweet Jesus. You can't make it up. Let's run through a hot board really quickly. So, I see everybody coming out with their hot board for LSU football and who their next head coach is going to be. No one knows. It's all speculation. Hey, who would work? Who would do this? I've already given you who I think I would go after. If I were in the situation, if you asked me, Blake, who do you think? I still can't stop laughing, dude. I'm sorry. Who do you think that LSU will go after as their next head coach? There are a couple of names. I know Josh Pate earlier today on our show brought up Marcus Freeman. I would not hate that. I don't think that happens, but I would not hate that. Guys, for me, I think that Lane Kiffin's going to be a massive part of this. As long as Alston Thomas is employed at Louisiana State University, I think that he is going to constantly target, and if he has any involvement in this whatsoever, Alston Thomas is going after Lane Kiffin. I think that Alston getting Lane Kiffin to LSU is his white will. And I would not hate that. I don't know at the current moment who and how. I don't know who's going to have the ultimate say. I don't think that they fully know how the power structure is going to fully work here. But if Alston has some involvement here, he's going to push for Lane Kiffin and those conversations happening. I think everybody's going to talk about it, whether you like it or not. And whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, he's going to be on top of that board, whether it's first, second, or third, but he's going to be in the top three. Another name that has come up a lot around LSU and its coaching hires is Tulane head coach John Summerall. Now, what I am about to say in the beginning part of this is complete opinion. It's not factual. It's not source-based. It is opinion. And I got to bring this up again. With Jeff Landry and the governor's office getting involved, it is very difficult for me to see at the current moment that John Summerall would be poached from Tulane. The reason being is because I think that everyone now knows that the governor has been involved here and that his elected board of supervisors for LSU has got the full autonomy from him to go and make this move. I personally believe it's political suicide to go after John Summerall when re-elections are going to happen. I'm sure that Governor Landry wants to run for re-election for governor if he doesn't have more aspirations after that. I don't think that it would go over well with the people of New Orleans and Tulane people and just people in general that the governor got involved. He fired the head coach of LSU. He goes and plucks the guy from Tulane and brings him to LSU with the guys that are backed that he has backed to bring him there. I think it's political suicide. It doesn't mean he won't do it. I don't think he will do it. I don't think that they can afford to do it in the sense of the political backing that he would lose from it. Now, I think John Summerall, for all that it's worth, would kill it here. I think he would kill it. I don't know how much or how involved Scott Woodward is going to be involved in this, and I think Scott Woodward would easily do it. I don't know how the politics play in this. And because politics, and this being the state of Louisiana, guys, we all know about the state of Louisiana. We all know about it. Politics run this state. I don't see that being a situation where that move gets made. Now, that is opinion. That is not factual. Like, that is not something that I look at this and say that is indefinite by sources. I personally can be easily wrong in that. And if it does happen, we'll be the first person to come out here and say that I was wrong. I don't know. But here's the truth that I know about Tulane, whether people want to like it or not. There are a lot of Republicans that went to Tulane. There are a lot of people that have a lot of money that are around the state that went to Tulane and that would be pissed off at him if he did this. The reason that I know is because one called me today who's given a lot of money to Tulane, and it's been a very influential person when it comes to political things that happen inside the state of Louisiana. I've known this man since I was 40 years old, and he called me today. He is a registered Republican, and he sits in a pretty prominent office politically himself. I don't think that anybody wants this war. I don't think that they want that. And I think the conversation is, I will back you and back this decision as long as you don't take John Summerall away from Tulane. So when I say New Orleans, what I don't mean like the actual city of New Orleans that a Republican will not win. What I personally mean is there are influential people that I don't think that want to get tied up in a fight here. That's probably the most political talk that we've ever done on this show, but it's where we are. A couple of other names here that I want to address on the hot board. Hold on, my notes went out. God dang it. God dog it. Oh, my computer freezes and then my notes go awry. That's on me. Okay. Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State. I like Kenny. I think Kenny Dillingham, for what it's worth, would give 110% if he was at LSU. He is currently at his alma mater, and I don't care. He would take this job. I think Kenny Dillingham, with his personality, would work here. I really do. I think that he would be relentless in recruiting. I think that he would be relentless in raising funds. He's already done it for Arizona State. Because the things that Kenny Dillingham has done for Arizona State is astronomically insane. There have been multiple fundraisers throughout the offseason that he's constantly working to raise funds to get NIL for players on his team. Kenny is a very bright offensive mind. I like that he's a bright offensive mind. He is someone that I would talk to. And I fully believe that as this process goes on, here is something that is sourced. I do think LSU is going to have a conversation, whether you like it, love it, or hate it. They are going to have a conversation with Kenny Dillingham and see if it works. Couple other names. Eli Drinkwitz, we talked about him. I could see that. I've seen a lot of people talking about Joe Brady and bringing up Joe Brady. Joe Brady ain't coming here. That Bengals job is probably about to open, and I think Joe Brady would love to re-team up with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. That's what I think. So whether it be Lane Kiffin, who I probably think is going to be one of, if not your top target, Marcus Freeman, I don't think that happens. We're going to have to really see how intrigued he is on this job. Kenny Dillingham, Eli Drinkwitz. I don't think John Summerall happens, and we'll see what happens from there. Is there someone that we're not talking about? If you're going to ask me, and I say this again, if you're going to ask me, I go after Lane Kiffin. That is me. But I am not over this. Some of the things that I brought up today are sourced. Lane Kiffin, Marcus Freeman, Kenny Dillingham, Eli Drinkwitz, and John Summerall. The only other one that I know some people wanted to take a closer look at was Louisville's Jeff Brom, and that dude wins, and that dude's a really good offensive mind. So we'll see. But he's not going to win over a booster room. That is for sure. Before we get to Super Chats here, I got to get to this. So Frank Wilson has taken over as the interim head coach. And tonight's theme of the show has been Brian Kelly basically didn't do everything he needed to do to win here. Frank Wilson will. When I look at Frank Wilson, for the first time in 3.5 years, you have a coach that actually probably full down, you cut him open, you look at his heart, cares about this place and cares about the state of Louisiana. Frank Wilson's going to give you everything he's gotten more. Frank Wilson is going to do things for LSU over the next month that I don't think Brian Kelly would have ever dreamed of doing. And basically what he made Frank Wilson do for him that Brian Kelly should have been taking care of himself. Over the next month, I have not only faith that Frank Wilson's going to do everything in his power to make sure that this place is stable as he can get it, but that he actually cares. To be real with you, whether it be Ed or whether it be Frank or whether it be Brad Davis, I'm proud of Frank Wilson. And a lot of people have said a lot of things about Frank and the running back rotation. Guys, if you only knew a third of the shit that Brian Kelly made Frank Wilson do, the truth of the matter is Frank's basically been your head coach while being your running backs coach and having to recruit most of the skill position players on the offensive side of the ball by himself. He's going to give you everything he's got, and I can live with that. I can live with that. I can live with somebody coming into a situation where you've seen a guy that, quite frankly, cares more than anybody. I don't know whatever's going to happen with Frank Wilson. But I know from a recruiting standpoint, from a portal standpoint, and from a team chemistry standpoint, there was really only one man that could have gotten this interim job. I know that people in the Board of Supervisors had a conversation for a fact about Blake Baker, and it was quickly shut down. From what I understand, Frank Wilson gave the Board of Supervisors through conversations and the powers that be the confidence that he can steady this ship until they hire the next head coach. So much confidence that they are going to back Frank over this next month. And if anything that he needs from per people that I've talked to, Frank Wilson's going to get it. I don't think he's going to be your next head coach, but he has the backing from everyone that has the power and stroke around this state and LSU. And the first thing that Brian Kelly should have done was the first thing that Frank Wilson did when he became the interim head coach, and reach out to the people that he needed to reach out to get alignment. It is not missed upon me that the first game that Frank Wilson's going to coach is the LSU interim, and the LSU head coach is Alabama. Let's go take it to their ass. It would be poetic justice to go into Tuscaloosa with Frank Wilson as your head coach and find a way to win. And I'm pulling for it. All right. I see that we have a lot of super chats in here. Let's get to it. Let's get to it. I saw one thing that I wanted to get to that wasn't a super chat that I wanted to get to. I saw it and I've missed it. I'm not entertaining anybody coming in here talking about Coach O retaking over. Stop. Stop. Can't find it. All right, let's get to super chats. Where did we leave off with here? All right, here it is. Ricky Pope with a $5 super chat says, I would do a 4-year contract with a minimum amount and with a 2-year extension after that. You're not getting anybody if you get in a bidding war with that. Ricky also sends a $20 super chat, says the only reason no mass exodus, ? Is it because we're waiting to see if Kiffin will be hired? My opinion. No, I mean, who's going to coach? I mean, who's he going to coach? I mean, who's going to coach these guys? Here's the truth. The reason from a player standpoint that you don't have a mass exodus is mainly due to the fact that some of these players are getting paid a ridiculous amount of money and they want their money. And they got to play to get their money. I think Frank can get buy-in in 2 weeks. I do. But the mass exodus and what was the question earlier? You can't do a 4-year contract. At minimum, you got to do a 5-year contract. At minimum. So the guys want their money, and you're going to have to do a 5-year contract at minimum. Ricky Pope, again, says LSU's not a culture, it's a way of life. We talked about that. Crazy with the Cheese Whiz with a $2 super chat says, if Frank Wilson does well, is he a candidate? I mean, if he wins out, yeah. Right? Like, I mean, he would have to win out. He'd have to beat Bama, and he'd have to win out here. And this team would have to go nuclear. I mean, the same thing would kind of have to happen with what happened with Ed. I will say this. I think that a lot would have to go wrong with who you're targeting for Frank to get it. There's a lot of people that want other candidates, and there's a lot of people with money that are going to try to get their way. So do I think realistically he can get the job? No, I don't. Not at this moment. But a month, it's a long time in sports. And if he wins out, there's no telling what will happen. Jesse O'Neill with a $10 super chat says, call me crazy, but BK wanted to use Joe as his ace get out of jail free card and his last person to blame. But when LSU pulled that ace card out, his hand, BK got mad and his whole thing came apart. Probably. I mean, you're probably right. You're probably right. You can't, to Jesse's point, BK should have never allowed, ever. He should have never allowed. Here's the thing. BK shouldn't have been allowed to get involved in play calling and run it back with that same guy. That's on Scott and BK. It's just the truth. Benny became a member of the YouTube channel. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate that. So did Bryce Burris. I greatly appreciate both of you for doing that. We'll get some members. Excuse me, guys. Some members only content out to you soon. I greatly appreciate y'all becoming members. Jonathan on YouTube with a $5 super chat says, now that BK and Joe Sloan are gone, do you see the team circling the wagon and getting re-energized for a strong finish? I could see that possibility, yes. Listen, man, Frank's going to try to get all the buy-in that he can. Can he find a way to do it? You know, is this a UCLA type situation? Is it a UCLA type situation? It very well could. It very well could be. I hope that it is, and I hope that we go into Bama in 2 weeks and smack that candy ass. I don't know if we can, but I hope they come out and play hard for him, yeah. And here's the thing. To guys like Jack Pyburn, Mansour Delane, Garrett Nussmeier, the entire offensive line, the wide receiver room, brother, y'all have a chance here to right so many wrongs about your draft status. Why would you go out there and not play hard? Like, I never understand that shit. I don't understand why kids do that shit. This game can be gone from you tomorrow. Ricky Pope with a $20 super chat says, the main problem in LSU, ? Those looking to make themselves great instead of the state of Louisiana and program. My question, who in the powers to be really love LSU? I mean, with all due respect, if you're going to pay millions and millions of dollars, you've got to love LSU to give millions of dollars, to be blunt with you, in my opinion. You got to give them if you're giving millions, you don't hate this place. Jonathan with another $5 or $10 super chat says, I think Frank should shake things up in practice, raise the competition. May the best man earn the right to start. What do you have to lose at this point? Be unpredictable. Let me tell you this. I almost tweeted this out today. This is sourced. I would run this story. It's okay. Every position is going to be up for grabs the next 2 weeks. Every position. Like, love, hate, every one of them. From quarterback to punter. And I don't know if, like, you don't even see a move done at kicker. I'm benching Damian Ramos. Just my opinion. But yes, 100% competition is coming. Dane Bergeron with a $5 super chat says, Blake, I made progress on your contract to be AD. LSU has the money now that BK's buyout has been negotiated. I had to get the Mamu Mafia involved. Well, I appreciate that. They still haven't reached out to me, though, Dane. If they asked me to be the athletic director, you might not like this. If I was the athletic director, the first thing that I'm doing is I'm meeting with Frank. What do you need? Tell me what you need and give me the context to go get what you need for recruiting. I'm getting with Austin Thomas second and saying, let's all get together. What do we need to go do? That would be the first thing that I did. Secondly, the powers that be, where are we going in this coaching search? Where do we all want to go? And number three, I'm calling Jimmy. Let me say this. On my drive into Baton Rouge, I am calling Jimmy Sexton and saying, what is it going to take for Lane Kiffin to be here? So if you want me as your AD, those are the moves that I'd make first. Sam on YouTube with a $2 super chat says, can Kern play guard now? I don't know. Who will play left tackle would be my question. That would be the real question. I don't know. Bryce with 2 super chats here, so let's run through both of them. He says, Summerall, Kelvin Shepard, Kiffin, Drink, Hartline, Brent Key. He also says, Summerall as head coach, Eric Morris as next OC, keep the DC. Bryce, I just don't see that happening, bud. I don't see it happening. I think it's political suicide to take a Tulane head coach. That's just me. Guys, I don't think Kelvin Shepard will be your next head coach, and I think a lot of you need to kind of pump that. It's not happening. Not in my opinion.
Broad 337 says, Blake, too early to ask who's playing quarterback next year. Way too early. I don't know if the quarterback that will play on your roster next or play for your team next year is on this roster. I really don't. I don't know if it's going to be Michael Van Buren. But I don't think it's on the roster. Dane Bergeron says, Blake, Tulane people are not going to vote for Landry in the first place. There's the opposite side of political spectrum. Not the fight that Landry would want on this one. It ain't the fight he'd want. There's a registered Republican for Tulane who has made it well known that he doesn't want to fight with. I promise you. He doesn't want this magic. Guys, let me tell you something. I don't think he wants that fight. It's not about New Orleans being I'm telling you, all right. Okay. Dane, I'm not thinking. I'm telling you, he doesn't want that fight. He may win it ultimately. He doesn't want it because it wouldn't be good. This isn't a Republican-Democrat situation that I'm talking about. There are some people with billions of dollars that will fight him if he goes and gets John Summerall. And they've let him know, from what I understand. He don't want that fight, brother. I'm telling you. Arctic Tiger with a $2 super chat says, news feed Lash, Landry ain't getting reelected. All right, we're not going there. We ain't going there. Grot, thank you for the money, though. Grot says, what guarantee can LSU get from a coaching contract? I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. I mean, you're going to have to guarantee somebody something. Clearly. But I don't know. Jordan Simpson with a $5 super chat says, Lane is head coach, Saban is GM, and Blake is DC. I know it's crazy, but a poor man can dream. Yeah, I think Austin's one of the best GMs in the country. But I wouldn't mind Saban in any role, to be real with you. Here's a name that we didn't talk about. What if Nick Saban wants back in the game? Would you take Lane Kiffin? That's the real truth. Lane Kiffin. Would you take Nick Saban? Of course, all of you would take Nick Saban. Tiger Fan 99 with a $5 super chat says, why did they leave Woodward out of the conversations with higher ups? Seemed like after a heated convo, everyone was on the same page of firing BK. I don't know. Maybe they're not all aligned. But that's what was reported. So, I don't know. Maybe they don't trust his judgment after giving a guy $100 million and you have to pay $53 million of it to walk away. Probably has a lot to do with it. Bryce says, OC, Lebby, or Eric Morris, my number one option. Thoughts? Why would Jeff Lebby leave a head coaching position to be an OC? That's my first thoughts. I don't hate the Eric Morris thing. I don't hate it. But even that one has its issues. Mark Allen and Sourdough Man became members of the YouTube channel. Thank you so much. Greatly appreciate y'all doing that. Humbly, thank you so much. Last one before we get out of here. Rolo with a $10 super chat says, it seems like all of the alignment talk, quote unquote, with PK was bullshit. It was bullshit. I know you can't always say it out loud, but damn, man, blink your eyes 3 times if you believe things are BS so we know in advance. Here's the truth that nobody wants to hear. BK's not the only one guilty in this too now. Scott and people around LSU got their hands involved in what BK was doing, and they didn't give him full autonomy. Like, they blamed him for hiring Matt House. He deserved to have blame for hiring Matt House. He had 30 scholarship players.
then he came out and then here's the thing. Then LSU turned right around with Blake Baker, who was a Scott Woodward hire. And when that defense went to shit, Scott said, oh, well, of course, it's the players. No shit. I mean, you went in the portal in 23 and you missed. So it is what it is. Rusty with a $2 super chat. Thank you so much, Rusty. I greatly appreciate it. Jonathan, the last one of the night here, says, Blake, now that Frank is leading at the helm, do you see an increase in the running game, getting more balance on offense? Yes, I do. And with Alex Atkins, I do see that you're going to do that for sure. All right, we'll see y'all tomorrow. Y'all have a blessed night. Until then, y'all have a good night. Peace.